Welcome back to Energetically You. I'm your host, Megan Swan. I am a mindset and wellness coach. I design custom, approachable wellness lifestyles for ambitious women. I love helping women optimize their wellness through plant-based nutrition, mindfulness, movement, and mindset practices so that they feel more confident in their own skin. My background, I am a certified health coach, plant-based chef, detox expert, and yoga teacher with over 10 years of integrated wellness experience. Today on the podcast, I have the honor of getting to know a little bit better Virginia Baker-Woolf. She is a mom, a wife, a corporate escapee, an entrepreneur, a freedom fighter, money coach, certified and accredited master coach, organizational facilitator. She, as a coach of 20 years standing, her passion and purpose is the transformation of her clients. She is going to dive deep for us today on coaching women on impostor syndrome. And I think this is something that people in general, but particularly women, experience across the board. I know I have I wouldn't say a daily practice, but I have mindset tools that I use consistently to whenever this pops up. And like most limiting beliefs, it's not like it's a one fix thing. So you need some tools, and I'm so excited to ask Virginia about her work and all things money. So let's dive in. Welcome, Virginia. How are you today?
Hi, Megan. I'm very good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm well. It was kind of a crazy day. The social media crashed, and I looked at it as a blessing to get a bunch of other things done. How about you on your side of the world?
Well, we had a holiday weekend.
Nice.
Or we had a long weekend, so that was very nice. By the same token, we've got leaders resigning and all sorts of political mayhem going on.
Right, that too. So tell us more about your personal journey and how you became a money coach.
Well, my personal journey is that I started as a foreign language lecturer, and I taught for a very long time. I taught at university for a very long time. And then I got a job in a very large, it's one of the largest in the Southern Hemisphere, in a very large government department, which was an educational organisation. And the culture there was just awful. Mm. It was a pit of snakes. There was a lot of gossip and rumour. People didn't trust other people. People stabbed other people. And it was just awful. So I thought, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. So this is when coaching first started. Mm. So I'd done one coaching course, and then I thought I had to take it further. So I did a lot of research, and I ended up doing a course with Coach You, and I highly recommend Coach You. And then I did training as a facilitator of a manager as coach program for organisations, which was also Coach You, and it's a fabulous program. And I then started to deliver that program in the organisation I was in, which, quite frankly, was in desperate need of it. The only problem was that the people who really needed it were the people right at the top who, of course, thought they were too good to be going to that sort of training. So that's where I started. And then somebody outside the organisation asked me to run that for them. And there was a whole lot of dithering around, and they weren't going to let me do it. So I said, righto, well, I'm going to resign. So I did. And then I spent quite a number of years as an organisational and development leadership coach in corporations, me running myself as a freelancer. And then I had a period of being very unwell, and money had been a problem for me. And I felt about money the same way that a lot of women feel when they take their car to the mechanic. You know, if I took my car to the mechanic, I just felt like a complete patsy who didn't have a clue, and the mechanic could tell me anything because I wouldn't know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that about money as well. And in fact, our systems are set up to underline that feeling in women. Now, I'm not suggesting that men do this on purpose. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, as in many other areas of development for women, money is another obstacle that we have to get through. So, in the 1950s, it was, if a woman had a job outside of the house, that was revolutionary, right? Mm. Well, the money thing is still revolutionary for women, and all of our systems, I'm talking about banking systems, insurance systems, tax systems, superannuation systems, they're all built by men for men, and women don't get much of a look in. And it's very interesting when you look at advertising and you see who is featured in this ad. And if it's an ad about money, it will generally always be men. Mm-hmm. And I think in 2019, up until 2019, if you Googled the word investor, it came up only with men, only. And Google have fixed that now, but that's only 2 years ago. We don't see ourselves represented in any of the advertising or the speaking of our communities. Women are not represented. And women getting in charge of their money is as important as the right to vote. There are so many things. So I had a problem with money, and I was sick of being like a dill. So I thought, how am I going to manage this? Now, because I'm an educator, and I've been an educator all my life, my first thing is, where are the books? Let me study the course. I'll figure this out. So I started doing a heap of reading, and I came across a money coaching training program, which is run in the States, in California, by a lady by the name of Deborah Price, the Money Coaching Institute, and her training looked so good, and I decided I'd take that training. And in doing that training work and, the practice coaching and the homework and so on and so forth, money is an issue that people can't put under the table. So, for example, when you're coaching somebody around leadership, the coachee, the person being coached, is the person who chooses the agenda and the goals. And in so doing, they can often put things under the table, and the coach may not be aware of those things. Or the coach may have a little bit of insight, but they have to be a little bit careful about how they draw this out, because it's obviously protected, so it's obviously a little bit dicey. So that's a bit of a dance. But when you coach with money, money is a metaphor for everything else in our lives. And we can't get away from money. I mean, in regards to leadership, you can get away from the boss who is command and control. I mean, you can swap positions, you can move. But money we deal with day in and day out. Every single day we're dealing with money. And so you can't run away from it. Now, because of that, the issues that are linked to money, like self-awareness, insight, self-care, self-development, shame, vulnerability, deservingness, enoughness, scarcity, all of those things will tie into money. So it's a bit like if you pull the money pin on a person's psyche, a whole load of other pins get pulled. So when you work with money and you heal money, you have the opportunity to heal a whole range of other things. So one of the key things in any coaching, but especially money coaching, is self-talk, what you're saying to yourself. So in money coaching, that really has to shift. So you don't get to stick with your same old stories. It's the deepest, most transformational coaching I have ever done. It surpasses any of the leadership coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, professional coaching. This comes out on top of everything because it's so transformational, because, as I said, people can't run away from what's on the table. So as is natural for me, I go away, do the reading, and then I put a course together, which is the same as I did with the coaching in the organisation I was in. So that is basically my story. It came out of being in a job I hated. And then the feeling that I think a lot of women have about money, which is being like a bit of a patsy and a bit of a dill. And
I don't know that word, but I gather what it means. It's a dill.
A dill, stupid.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that's really important about money coaching is the taboo around money. So in many issues that are very pertinent to women, we can discuss them with each other. So, the whole thing about being a super mum, a superwoman, and, you've got the little kids and you've got the husband and you've got the job and you have to be 3,000% excellent at everything. You can't do that with money. So those issues are really important. But when you throw money in, it all becomes a whole lot more transformational.
When you say the example with the mom, there's so many things I wanted to circle back on, but let's go first here. What do you mean you can't with money? Meaning you can't pretend that you have it all together with money?
Yes, exactly. So much is expected of women, and in those sorts of issues about supermum, there's a lot of community around women talking about that. So women will talk to each other about the fact that they're overrun, that the expectations are too high, that they're not happy going to work and leaving a sick child. And it's a bit like, doesn't matter what they do, they don't win. There's a whole load of community around that these days, with women being able to talk about that very easily with other women, because we're all having similar experiences one way or another. But with money, so what that means is we get a lot of support from each other, like we understand what that woman's going through, and we've got some wise words, and we're happy to be a listening ear, and we're happy to give support. And that conversation is not out of bounds. Whereas with money, the conversation is completely out of bounds. We are not allowed to talk about money with anybody. Women, 61% of women would rather talk about death than money.
Well, when you were telling your story, it seemed to me that I thought of this old adage that the two things you can't ever talk about are money and sex, right? And I think there's a lot of parallels of this being like in the same way it's taboo, and also it can be transformational and self-actualizing in ways that people don't understand because we don't talk about it.
Exactly. That is exactly what it is. And because we don't talk about it with each other, we don't have that community of support that we have with women with other issues that concern us all, particularly around motherhood, working and wifedom. Like all those problems. I mean, I don't know about in the States, but here there's a saying, it's the same old story in every household. The only thing that changes is the face and the name. So the problems are all the same. It's just the names are different. But with money, we don't have permission to talk. Now, the sooner that we can manage fostering permission to talk, the sooner we'll be able to share with each other. And that means we get support from each other. And not only that, but it normalises the conversation. And it accepts the fact we have problems. There are problems with this. And they're not problems that are just limited to women. Men have problems with money as well. We all have these problems. But not being allowed to talk about them leaves us very alone, Yeah.
For me, in my entrepreneurship, which is only since March of 2020, that I would have used that word for myself, but it's been essential that I've surrounded myself, and I'm well aware that I, in this sense, live in an internet bubble of successful, oftentimes multi-million-dollar women that are 10, 20 years my junior sometimes. And it just gives you like a whole other perspective and narrative. And they're so much more open to talking about these things and not making me feel stupid that I have, 1,000 questions and I don't necessarily know what I'm talking about. And I feel like there is this shift, one, away from corporate, like you've escaped from corporate. I think that's in a stronger and stronger narrative. I saw a stat the other day that something like 60% of the US workforce by 2050 is going to be, working for themselves instead of a bigger corporation. And I think this is one of the greatest sources of, feminist revolution, if you will, that more and more women are doing what you did and just taking their own path and not, relying on fitting into the patriarchal box, which, as you pointed out, it's not like all men's fault and that they didn't necessarily consciously design everything as it is. But the reality is there's only good things that are going to happen when there's more money in the hands of women.
That's another really, really important point. When women have more money, they behave differently to men when men have more money. Now, there's a very funny skit. I don't remember the man's name, but there's a very funny skit that a guy in the States does, where he stands up on the stage and he says, what's the difference between men's brains and women's brains? Well, men's brains are made up of a lot of little boxes. No box can touch any other box. So they're all compartmentalized. No sharing, no collaboration, everything just in its own box. And then they have the biggest box that they have is for nothing. And that's where they like to spend the majority of their time, in their nothing box. Now, the difference is with women. When you look at women's brains, every box is connected to every other box. So there's a whole load of viral activity happening in women's brains. And now, this is a very funny skit when he does it on, YouTube or whatever. And if people want to see, all they have to do is Google men's brains, women's brains, it'll come up. And what happens with a woman's brain in the functioning of it being very sparky and very connected is that when it's money, we then take money and we flow it through all of those brain connections of collaboration. And what women do when they have money is they do community projects. So we collaborate with each other and we do good works and we create families. And that can be a community in our own country. It might be a community in another country. I mean, I know I'm very good friends with a woman who is building a community in Africa in regards to sanitary napkins, would you believe? Mm-hmm. That young girls in this part of Africa can't go to school on those days because they've got nothing to protect themselves, and to be sanitary with. So they stay at home from school. Well, this is shocking. This is terrible. So this friend has built a community where they're building so that every child has access, every little girl has access to sanitary napkins and tampons.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only one example. There are so many. And when we look at women entrepreneurs, we'll often find that they're giving a percentage. And in fact, you may know this, there's an organisation in Australia called Canva, started by a young Australian woman, and then her husband joined her, and it came out of the sort of thing of sitting at the kitchen table and doing stuff with design. And then she thought, well, wouldn't it be great if everybody could do this? And how could I make that happen? Now, they're worth, I'm not sure of the figure, but it's like they're worth billions. They're young, they're in their 20s. It's worth billions. And I read something about them the other day. They're giving to 130 charities. That's what women do. So we want more money in the hands of women. Women will also do, as I said with my friend with the little girls in Africa, women will also do community work and charity work in areas where women are suffering. So you get money into the hands of this woman in a first world country in the Western world, and she then organises to help these little girls in Africa. I mean, this is fabulous. And that's what women do when they have money. Yeah. So really important to get more money into the hands of women. Another thing is that money stress is the greatest stress in households of, young families. So when you have a mother who is very financially stressed and worried, she can't be the same mother that she would be if she didn't have that worry and stress. Mm-hmm. So then you start to talk about raising the next generation and whether that generation is being raised by women who are calm, cool and collected and therefore are more emotionally present mm-hmm. Than the mother who's very anxious about money. I mean, it's like, it's like as simple as ABC, really.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I wanted to ask you about imposter syndrome because I think that's one thing that holds many women back from starting some enterprise or following their great idea. And usually starting a new company does involve, taking some, classes or your course or educating themselves about money, not only the know-how, but the money mindset required to follow a good idea and to execute it.
I agree. Impostor syndrome, I think a lot of women are affected by impostor syndrome, and I was as well. When I look at the way I'm working now, and I look at the way I was first working when I left that corporate position, I don't have the same sort of anxiety. I don't have, if somebody doesn't like my work or whatever, that's fine. That's fine. I don't mind. They've got every right not to like my work. Somebody else loves my work. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Women suffer from imposter syndrome because they feel like they're frauds. That's the real basic tenet of imposter syndrome, feeling like a fraud. And the imposter syndrome thing also goes right to the very heart of women. And it's still about gender issues. Mm-hmm. So little girls being raised, I think little girls are still being taught that boys do this and girls do that. We still have a whole load of issues about how women are seen and how men who behave in the same way are seen. So, if a woman is truly assertive and a great leader, that makes her out to be a bully. But if a man is assertive and a great leader, he's fantastic. Now, if you have a whole lifetime of that, it's no wonder that you'd have a little bit of self-doubt. And I think one of the best ways through imposter syndrome is a thing called a life inventory tool, where you sit down and you go through every part of your life. And of course, you're not going to do this in one setting or one sitting. You go through every part of your life and you actually note down what you did, what your achievement was, what you learnt, and what your skills were that you used in that activity. Now, if you do that for yourself for 20 years of working life, you start to see yourself as a resource. You start to see that you really do have resources. And it doesn't have to just be your working life. I mean, you can look at what did you do, when you were a 7-year-old at school, how was that for you? Who was giving you what message? And what was your response? We need to look at ourselves in a much more positive manner. And the best way to do that is to give ourselves some reality, like to do a reality check. A reality check for imposter syndrome is a really essential tool. So let's say a person says to themselves, oh, I can't do that. I'm not good enough for that. I'm not good enough to do this coaching business. Okay, so then we ask a reality statement. Well, are you good enough? Are you? I mean, have a look at what you've done. Is that true? Is that statement you've just made true, that you can't be a great coach? And if I sit here thinking, I think, no, that's not true. It's actually not true. That is a belief that my mind is making up based on old information, and no, it's not true. And so then we need to let that negative belief go, and we need to reframe it into a positive. I'm a great coach. I am a fabulous coach. These are all my clients. This is what I started earning, and this is what I'm earning now. So they give negatives a flip. Now, that might sound a little bit superficial, but that's only because I'm just giving you a quick example, here like this. Mm-hmm. You can go much deeper with a much deeper negative statement. Then you question the reality and then you reframe it. Really important work for imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I can remember as far back as elementary, that there was just something, like I could brag to my mom about how great I did in something, but it wasn't like, it's not something you did even amongst your girlfriends.
That is exactly right. Be very careful. Be very careful that you don't, say I'm better than everybody. I mean, the reality is, if somebody's done something great and they talk about it with their mum about how great it is, they should be able to tell their girlfriends without fear or favour, without girlfriends going into this whole thing about she thinks she's better than me. Mm-hmm. This is another area where women need to stand together. Women need to be far more represented. I mean, I don't know what I do know. I do have an idea what it's like in the States, but in Australia, our percentage representation of women in CEO positions and ministerial level government work is infinitesimal. And it is certainly not a reflection of the calibre and quality of the women that we have.
What are you currently working on, Virginia?
I'm currently working on, I've got a big signature course, the 4-step framework money project, which is very in-depth and touches on many, many issues where money has an interlink. Lately, I decided that I would do a course that would be more economically available for people, because I think with COVID everywhere all over the world, people have had, serious problems. Mm-hmm. So I decided I'd do a short course. Well, my short 4-module course turned into 6 modules, but it's a really good course, and it's not, there's a lot of work in it, especially in the first module, about rewriting your money story. We all have a money narrative in our head, all of us, every single one of us. We have a narrative that goes on in our head, and we don't ever question it. And that narrative has been written by a 5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And we are still being affected by it. And I would even say that impostor syndrome, whatever that narrative is, has also been written by a 5-year-old. So it's a great little course. It's 6 modules. I'm going to launch it next week. It's only $97. That's Australian dollars. So it's like $75 US. There's no, like in my big course, there's weekly coaching. In this course, there's no coaching. But I mean, I'll say to people, if they want to email me and ask me something, I don't mind. So that's what I'm working on. A lot about your money story. And then we talk about your money personality there's a quiz. And then we talk about your value system and there's a quiz, because the issue about values is that if you tell me where you spend your money, I can tell you what's important to you. I can tell you what your values are by what you spend your money on. If we're not living in line with our values, we're not really very happy. So if we get to live in line, aligned with our values, both at home and at work, we have a much more fulfilled and happy life. So there's the values. Then I do 1 module on practicalities. Now, I'm not a financial planner, so I'm quite open about that. But I still give them 9, we go through 9 issues, which is all about the practicalities. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you'll understand this. Women who start a side hustle think that it's okay to run everything off 1 credit card and 1 bank account because, look, this is just a side hustle. It's not a lot of money. It's just a side hustle. So it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if they're a bit mixed up. Well, no, yes, it does matter. It really does matter. And your side hustle might become something more. And I don't know what the taxation system is in the States, but in this country, if I spend 12 months building a business and all I have is outflow, but I don't have any inflow, as soon as I do have inflow that I'm paying tax on, all of that previous money that I've paid out now becomes a tax deduction. So you've got to be able to keep track of your money. And then another really simple practical thing is with entrepreneurs, they don't charge themselves out at enough money because they think, I'm charging $150 or I'm charging $200. That's a good fee and that's a lot of money. Yes, but when you go through all their essential incidentals and their admin work and their taxes, there's a whole other lot of money that has to get added to that hourly rate. And I think that there are lots of freelancers and side hustlers out there who don't know these things. And then we go through busting blocks, and there are 13 major blocks, the baker's dozen of money blocks. And then I go through with them modalities that they can use to break the circuit of fear and stress.
Love that.
It's a good course, and it's a giveaway price. That's what I'm working on. And then I think to myself, I'm no longer really finished with this. Then I think to myself, what am I going to do next? Like, what course am I going to write next? Because after I've done all of this, I don't know what I'm going to do with my time. I think I'm going to write a thing on burnout.
I was going to say.
Lots of women, especially the women who are working, small children, commuting, school. It's a big ask, and it's no wonder people end up being burnt out. So that's one thing. And the other thing is about basically self-coaching yourself into a happy, productive life, whatever that might look like. So I've got 2 still to come. Oh, no, I've got 3 still to come. There's an EFT practitioner in the States called Margaret Lynch. She is fantastic. And she has a course, she trains coaches, and she has a 16-week course that you can do with clients, which is really fantastic. And it's all about 16 issues, and you tap on each issue. Each issue is a week, And so you do this, you tap on the side of the hand and you go through the points and you tap. It's fantastic. I mean, one of her weeks, for example, is, and imposters have this, a vow. We take vows as women. There's a vow to be invisible because it's not safe to be seen, because when women are seen, they're often knocked off their perch. So she does a whole week on looking at that, which is, it's really important work. So I'm going to do that too. What are you doing?
Well, I'm currently running my Align and Shine course, which is just one of my favorite things to run because it's a collaboration of many women that I invite in to do guest masterclasses along with the one-on-one coaching and the group coaching. And so it's just a really powerful experience for the people in it, but also for me, going through the different, right now we're focusing on embodiment and learning deeper levels of embodiment and confidence in your own skin from multiple modalities. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing this and I coach privately. So this is, I feel like this conversation was perfect timing. And I love when you were specifically talking about finding alignment, because that's one thing I talk about a lot, and sometimes we don't have a lot of time to go into it, but people are not necessarily even clear on what their values are. And so when they get more clear on that and then decide if they're actually living in alignment with them, that's like a huge shift for people. And in your course, that was, module 2 of 6. So I can't imagine how impactful this course is going to be. So I congratulate you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. The values piece is really important. And the majority of people, like you say, don't understand that. But I mean, if I have a value, for example, of creativity, if that's a value that's important to me, but I never do anything creative, how would my life be different? How would I feel different on a daily basis if I did something that expressed that value? Well, I'd feel over the moon, In the course, they do a values quiz, which comes up with their 4 top values or 4 or 5 top values, but they also get an ebook. And the ebook goes into a lot of detail about values, and it takes them through a number of exercises as well. And they have to actually commit to paper. How are you going to express this value going forward? What is a project that you could create for yourself going forward with this value? And, when I say what project you're going to put together, it sounds like a lot of work. I don't mean it's a lot of work. I just mean sit down, decide what you're going to do and do it. Something that expresses that value for you. For me, it's painting. I paint. And, I like to do weird and wonderful things with my glasses and stuff. And when I dress according to my values, I'm much happier. So and those are 2 really simple things, the way I dress and my painting. They're as obvious as the nose on your face. And that's not very difficult. Now, there'll be other values, and how do you express those? Like if you're a catalyst, if you have a value for being a catalyst, where are you expressing that in your life? Well, if you're a catalyst, you need to be in organisational development, coaching, or learning and development, something where change is happening and you're helping people with change.
Yeah.
It's a really important piece.
Yeah, I love that. We have that in common. We're not afraid to be seen with our creative, colorful wardrobes and stand out a little bit. And I know that I've always received compliments on that from people that, live in black wardrobes. That I admire how you just wear such great, usually I have I live in Mexico, so I have big earrings. Today it's a little bit muted, but So the first thing I noticed about you is your free expression of color, and it was very refreshing.
Are you in Mexico?
Yes, I'm a Canadian and I live in Mexico. I have been living here for 13 years, so I'm one Mexican.
Wow. So I speak Spanish. That's what I used to teach.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, I'm 90% bilingual at this point after so many years and, teaching yoga and opening businesses here. But I will share all those links in the show notes. And thank you so much, Virginia. Is there any last thing you wanted to leave us with?
The most important thing is for women to realize that the money issue, getting clear and working with the money issue, is just as important as the right to vote. We will not be empowered as women until we've got money working for us and under control, and it doesn't frighten us anymore. That's the really important thing. Money is as important as the right to vote, so we need to get with it.
I have goosebumps. I love that you said that. So thank you so much for being here, for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, Megan, thank you so much. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much to Virginia. I really enjoyed that conversation. So many little golden nuggets there. And I love that she brought it back to that deep empowerment reality that until more money is in the hands of women, there will not be true equality on this planet. And I am extremely optimistic. Like I said, I see more and more women of all ages taking charge of this issue in their lives, the money issue. So I'm always happy to chat about it or reach out to Virginia, and we'll be seeing you. I hope you have a beautiful day, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.